What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicy Jet podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rooney, and we are only 2 weeks away from training camp, and it cannot come soon enough because I am so bored and so tired of not having any football news out there in general. Not even just Jets news. There's no football news. Nothing is going on. Everybody's on vacation. It is so quiet, too quiet. I mean, I've been looking at like fantasy football stuff just because I have nothing else to pay attention to right now. I think the only thing that's really happened in the past week is Sauce Gardner went on to Pat McAfee and said, we're still working through the contract. So that's all we got. And he hasn't really changed his tone around any of that. But the good news is we got a quick episode. Still a great episode, but a quick episode for you. So we're going to do the same stuff we've been doing. We've got our trivia question that we're going to go through. We've got a little bit about training camp battles. I just want to give an update of what I'm going to be looking for over the next, month or two as training camp starts to open up. Who are the players that are potentially fighting for a starting job and who's not? And then we'll maybe do a quick gym break, like really fast. Maybe we'll do offensive breakdown first, gym break, and then we'll go defensive battles second. And then that's it. Then we'll get out of here. Make it nice and quick. And we'll save up a big episode for next week when I'll do my 53-man roster prediction for the New York Jets going into 2025. So let's get started with the trivia question. My trivia question is a very interesting one. In 1979, the New York Jets played a Monday night football game that is very historic in New York Jets history. The question is, why is it historic? Who did they play against? I guess I'll ask, did they win? I guess that's an interesting part of this, too. What was the story behind why this was such a big deal in New York Jets lore? And if anyone happened to be at this game, please comment. I would love to know if you were there. I would love to hear some stories. But that is my trivia question. So in 1979, the New York Jets played a Monday night football game. Why was it so historic? Who did they play against? Did they win? And what is the story behind what made it so historic? So we will come back and answer that trivia question after we go through our episode here. So what I want to do, training camp, the rookies arrive on the 19th. Training camp starts on the 22nd with the veterans arriving. They probably start practice on the 23rd, whatever it might be. But we've got a lot of battles across this team. I don't think this team is as locked in with starters as maybe you would think. And there's no surprise. I mean, we're a very young team. We have a new head coach, a new general manager. I'm sure there's going to be some turnover across what we thought were really good players for our team that maybe this new coaching staff doesn't think are going to be locked players to start on this team. So let's start on the offense with some training camp battles that I'm looking for. Quarterback. I don't think there's a battle here. I think Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor are locked in as the 1-2. We've already announced Justin Fields as the starter. And then Adrian Martinez, Brady Cook are going to be battling for that third spot if we carry a third quarterback at all. I imagine we'll carry one of them on the practice squad. So which one is it going to be? That's essentially all you got going on with quarterback. Running back is a very interesting one because we got a really good running back room. I don't care what anybody says. It's a good running back room. You got Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, who was really underutilized last year, Isaiah Davis, who flashed late in the season, and then you've got the kick returner, Kene Nguanu, and then we have a couple undrafted free agents who we think have potential to make the roster, but we'll talk about them next week. I don't think there's any battle here. Breece Hall is clearly the starter. The biggest question is, what percentage of the carries are a Braylon Allen going to get and an Isaiah Davis going to get? So that'll be interesting to watch, but nothing that crazy for us to talk about in training camp battles. Wide receiver number 1, lock, Garrett Wilson. We'll see if he gets extended. There's some doubt now whether he's going to get extended before the season, which could make things really interesting. I really hope he does. But we'll see how that goes. But he is, no matter what, a lock for wide receiver 1. The training camp battle that I'm going to be looking for is wide receiver 2. We got a couple people competing for that role. You got Josh Reynolds, who was our free agent signing, came from Detroit. You got Alan Lazard, who we all know and dearly, dearly love. You got Tyler Johnson, who was a signing this offseason. We got Arian Smith, who was one of our draft picks. Malachi Corley, draft pick from last year. Xavier Gibson, who we all know, Xavier Gibson, more of a slot receiver, and then a few other folks that might be battling out, like a Brandon Smith, Jamal Pritchett, just to make the roster. So for me, the reason why I say wide receiver 2 is the battle, because I think it is a little up in the air between Josh Reynolds and Allen Lazard. I do think Josh Reynolds has the upper hand just because Aaron Glenn knows him, trusts him. So does Tanner Engstrand. He came from Detroit. He's a veteran that knows how to play. I think that's probably why he's number 2, which would make number 3 Allen Lazard. Allen Lazard could also be competing for slot receiver snaps when you have Xavier Gibson on the field, if Xavier Gibson wins the job as a slot receiver. So that's going to be really interesting to see what happens after Garrett. Who's going to come out of training camp as our 2, 3, 4, and 5 receivers? Does Malachi Corley make the roster? This sounds like this coaching staff doesn't like him already. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does. I hope he plays well. I really like Malachi Corley. I thought he got kind of dealt a bad hand because the coaching staff, our last coaching staff, did not put him in the right position to succeed. They're playing him as a real wide receiver, but that's not what he is. He's like a Debo Samuel. Give him a screen and just let him run and run people over. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes with the New York Jets and their wide receiver room during training camp. So that's a huge one to watch. If there's one thing on offense that you should really be paying attention to, it's the wide receivers. Who is going to give Justin Fields some help? And who's actually going to make this roster? The big thing is the back half of the receiver room. Can you play special teams? So can Malachi Corley play special teams? Irvin Charles is going to be out for a little while. So can Arian Smith play special teams? We'll see. That's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, you're not going to cut Arian Smith. You just drafted him, but it's just going to be fun to watch. Tight end. I think it's a lock. Mason Taylor is your starting tight end. He should be out there for most passing downs. Jeremy Ruckert, I believe, will be your blocking tight end / fullback. But I think between him, Stone Smart, and then our fullback, Andrew Beck, they're probably all going to be fighting for 2 roster spots. So Mason Taylor's a lock, and then you maybe got 2 roster spots between Ruckert, Stone Smart, Zach Kuntz, and Andrew Beck, the fullback. So I think Stone Smart is probably a lock because I think they really like his hands. Jeremy Ruckert he's kind of been disappointing so far. Do I think he still has potential, especially with his old quarterback playing with him? Yes, but it's not a lock. And some of his blocking just didn't live up to what I thought it was going to be either. So we'll see how it goes. Andrew Beck could be our best blocker, and he doesn't even play tight end. He plays fullback. So I'm very curious to see how that all shakes out. But either way, you feel really good about Mason Taylor and having him as your starting tight end. Now, across the offensive line, I feel really good about Olu starting at left tackle, so no competition there. John Simpson at left guard, no competition there. This center thing is so weird to me. I feel like it's a lock that Joe Tippmann is your starting center, but for some reason they keep pushing this narrative that he's competing with Josh Myers. Maybe it's just a new coach trying to, drum up some competition between a new guy and a guy who's been on the team for a couple of years. But Joe Tippmann played great, I thought, over his first couple of years. He's still young, so he's got a lot to learn, but I'd rather have him start and be athletic and do all the things he does with Josh Myers as the backup. Then at right guard, AVT, there's no competition there. AVT is the starter. And then at right tackle, they may say there's a competition to start between Chukuma Okorafor and Armand Membu. But we just drafted Membu in the first round. What was he, pick 9, 8? I already forgot. So he's going to start. It's just when will they announce him as the starter, I think is my question. And that leaves some good backups. Because then you got Carter Warren, who can be a backup. While he's not great, it's better to have him as a backup. Xavier Newman, who's been on the team for a long time. Good backup. Josh Myers, very good backup. Max Mitchell can play. I would call him okay backup. Chukuma Okorafor, good backup. Hopefully he's back healthy and all that stuff from all the things that went down last year where he just quit on the team. So there's some people in there. But I really like the starting 5. I feel like it's a lock. I think we just got to put an end to this Josh Myers, Joe Tippmann thing. Joe Tippmann should be the starter, but yeah, it's a place to watch. O-line is always going to be interesting, especially when the pads come on in training camp. All right, so that is our offense. So the really big, just to recap, the really big training camp battles that I'm looking for are wide receiver 2, as well as the rest of the wide receiver room, what's that's going to look like. Who's going to be our backup tight ends? Is it going to be Ruckert? Is it going to be Stone Smart? Is it going to be Andrew Beck? And then really, who are our backup offensive linemen, even though I feel like they're pretty locked in? Is anyone just going to pop out that we're not used to that could bump out a Xavier Newman, a Carter Warren, a Max Mitchell? So those are really the big pieces. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much set in stone. All right, we will do a really quick gym break, very fast. If you haven't been here before, gym break. I'm a Jets, Islanders, Mets, and Knicks fan. JIM spells Jim with a silent K at the end. So the big things. Let's start with the Islanders. Nothing really new. We saw all the new draft picks on the ice, which was great to see. But there's nothing really that big happening right now. So just exciting. Young team, going to be exciting moving forward. But there's probably going to be a nice quiet period for the Islanders over the next couple weeks as they get up to September where the preseason will start, which is crazy that it starts at the same time as football. It feels like it just ended. Let's go with the Mets. The Mets coming off the worst slump of the season. They kind of bounced back. They won 5 of 6. They just won 2 out of 3 against the Yankees to split the entire yearly series, which is great. I feel a lot better about where they're at, but I want to see them roll a little bit more. Juan Soto's coming off a fantastic month. He still needs to hit with runners in scoring position. I don't know why he can't do that, but we'll get there. And then, of course, you had Edwin Diaz is playing great. He was named an All-Star. Lindor's the starting shortstop in the All-Star game, and then Pete was also named as an All-Star. So, things are looking back up. We're turning around here as a Mets, and Winker's back. I see he's playing tonight. I think we're going to get some of these pitchers back. So, we can be calm about the Mets now. All right, and the last one, the Knicks hired their head coach finally, Mike Brown. For me, I don't know how to feel. I feel like it's the same thing as Thibodeau, but you won't know until you see it. He's experienced, which is nice. You're not getting, some new guy who there's a high risk. You kind of know what you're getting. It's just, did you need to fire Thibodeau for this guy? And maybe that's what they believe. Either way, expectations are high. It's championship caliber roster. Go win a championship. So that is our gym break. That was probably the quickest gym break we've done. So on to the defense. So now the defense, we're going to talk about as if they're in a nickel package, which means that they have 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, 2 safeties, 3 corners. So we're not going to do the whole base 4-3 defense because I don't really see us having 3 linebackers on the field at the same time. I think Michael Carter is going to play a lot. So let's start with defensive end. Defensive end is going to be one of the bigger battles, not because of the 2 main guys. We know Will McDonald is going to start, and we know once Jermaine Johnson is healthy, he is also going to start. He can't play every snap, though, Jermaine Johnson. He's coming back off a bad injury for an end. So who's going to be the people that step in to help rush the passer when those 2 are either rotating or taking a rest or whatever? I think number 1, unfortunately, we got to look at Michael Clemens. Michael Clemens was probably the worst D-end in all of football last year, combined with Hassan Reddick. It was just a horrible combination. Michael Clemens must have given up multiple touchdowns on his own last year, but we really have no one else, so he has to play. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the coaching staff lays that out, but can someone beat out Michael Clemens? That's my big question. Then you look at Tyler Barron. We just drafted him this year. He's probably more of a pass rush specialist than a run stuffer. But we'll see what he's got. We haven't really seen him in pads yet, so who knows. And then you got the guys from last year. You got Braden McGregor. You got Eric Watts. Can they be anything? Rashad Weaver, we just signed this offseason, who is a veteran. He doesn't have a ton of sacks, but can he be a stalwart over there? Can he just set the edge? So I think it's going to be really interesting to see who steps up. Is there anyone? And looking at this right now, I'm thinking we have to go scour the waiver wire or pick up somebody either late in August before the season starts, or if you can just sign someone, right before training camp starts, that would be great. So defensive end is a scary one for me because I don't feel great about Jermaine playing, all out full snaps starting week 1. So who's gonna step up in his place? And the Michael Clemens one scares me. Next is D tackle. We obviously know who our 1 D tackle is. Quinn Williams, one of the best players in the league, was just named number 87 on the top NFL players, or the top 100 players of 2025. So good for Quinnen. Then it's a bunch of guys. We signed a whole bunch of random dudes this offseason who are veterans that are old, that have jumped around to different teams, and really aren't standouts. And then we have a couple young guys that maybe they can fill in. So Derek Nandi, he's a little bit older. He's played on the Chiefs for a bunch of years. He's won a couple Super Bowls. Kind of a run stuffer. Not huge though. He's not a big guy, so I worry about him being a little bit older, probably not being as good. If the Chiefs don't re-sign you, that's probably a bad sign. So we'll see how Derek Nandi does. It sounds like Byron Cowart is someone who has performed well in the offseason so far. Can he step up and be the guy next to Quinnen? He's another one, journeyman, but played with our defensive line coach at his last, I think he was with the Bears previously. So we'll see. Jay Tefele. I mean Jay Tefele, I've never seen him do anything before. So I don't feel good about him. The one that's like the real you never know is Leonard Taylor. Leonard Taylor didn't get a lot of run last year. If you remember, he was our undrafted free agent that we signed to the roster in training camp or before training camp last year. And he's got a lot of upside, but we didn't see a ton of it last year because he really didn't get on the field. And when he did, the season was kind of over. So can he, if he could be the guy, that would be the perfect scenario to have Quinnen and him either rushing the pass or stopping the run at the same time. And then you got guys like Peyton Page, who is a undrafted free agent from this year that we got from Clemson. You got Fedarian Mathis, who's been around a little bit. None of these guys scream big, fat, Al Woods-esque run stuffer, so I'm very nervous about stopping the run. I don't think we're going to be very good at stopping the run this year, which scares the crap out of me. But that is a big training camp battle to watch. Who sticks out of that group of defensive tackles to be either the guy next to Quinnen or make the roster? That's a big question. All right, linebacker. Obviously, we have two locks for linebacker. You got Jamie and Sherwood, just got paid the big bucks. Quincy Williams, who this is it for him. This is his last year under contract for the New York Jets. If we suck, do we trade him at the deadline? Do we extend him if he plays really well? That's going to be a huge question going into this year. But those two are locks, no doubt about it, to be the top two linebackers this year. The big battle is who's the third and fourth? Who's going to make the roster from the linebacker group? You got Jamin Davis, former first-round pick of the Commanders. He's on the squad. We just drafted Francisco Mauigoa from Miami. Zaire Barnes has been on the team for 2 years. Haven't seen a lot from him. Marcelino McCrary-Ball is getting up there in age, and he's been on the team a while. You got Jackson Sermon and then a couple other undrafted free agents. No one in that group is screaming out to me, I will step up if someone goes down. I think Jamin Davis, just because he has experience, he's athletic. Aaron Glenn and Muji seem to like him. So he might be the guy that's third, but who's fourth? Is it Mauigoa because we just drafted him? Maybe he could play special teams. Same thing with Zaire Barnes, Marcelino McCrary-Ball. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. You're going to see a lot of these guys during the preseason, so it's going to be fun to watch. And I hope it's Mauigoa. I want to see one of our young guys like step up and play well, and then you got a good like backup linebacker for 4 years on their rookie contract. That's the same thing with like Leonard Taylor, like Tyler Barron. I want to see these young draft picks play well, so that you have a good young core of depth for the next few years. So that'll be interesting. Cornerback, obviously the lock of the century. One of your corners is going to be Sauce Gardner. Your second corner, I feel pretty good about it still being Brandon Stevens. There's still rumors, like, can he play safety? I don't think he's going to play safety to start. I think we're going to see how he does. If he doesn't do well, then you get your third corner, Azareye'h Thomas, who we drafted in the third round this year, to take his spot. So I feel good about the top three. But then we have some talented players around them, too. Will they make the roster? So I love Quantez Stiggers. I love his story. I think he's like an inspiration. I really want him to make the team. I don't know if he will. Then you got Chris Boyd. Remember, he's the guy we just signed this offseason that pushed his coach in the Texans postseason game against the Chargers. He's probably going to make the roster because he's like a stalwart at special teams. And then you got Jarek Bernard-Converse. He's been around a while. Draft pick for a few years ago. Played pretty well in the preseasons, but never really got on the field. So is he a guy that can step up? That's a really interesting room to me. I'm very excited to see who can make it. I wonder if any of them can move to safety since we're lacking people there. But you got to feel good about your top three. And then, of course, in the slot, you got Michael Carter. who's just an absolute stud. Don't forget, we also have Isaiah Oliver still. He can play a little bit of safety as well, but I think he's kind of a chess piece. Same thing with undrafted free agent Jordan Clark. So a lot of interesting guys there, and I'm not sure how this one's going to play out. All right, and then finally, the last battle. This is probably one of the bigger ones on defense. As you can see on defense, we have a lot of battles. I don't think the defense is set at all. But the big battle is going to be safety. I think you're locked in at free safety with Andre Cisco, who was one of our bigger signings this offseason, who everyone's pretty excited about. Homegrown, a guy who grew up a Jets fan, so you want to root for him. So I feel good about Andre Cisco. But then who plays next to him at strong safety? You've got, obviously, the incumbent, Tony Adams, who, like Woody Johnson, was trying to get benched last year because he can't tackle. That's his big problem, is Tony Adams cannot tackle. He can cover pretty well, but he missed way too many tackles last year. Then you got our draft pick, Malachi Moore from Alabama. Is he someone who could take Tony Adams' spot? And in my mind, he could. I think it's a good rotation if you have those three, but can Malachi Moore beat out Tony Adams? Even though Malachi Moore isn't like lauded as this freak athletic safety that is going to change the game. He was like a 5th-round pick, or maybe it was a 4th-round pick. So that's going to be really interesting. Tony Adams versus Malachi Moore. And then you got a couple other guys, like Jalen Simpson. You got Dean Clark. You've got Jarius Monroe, who's still around. So it's going to be interesting to see who makes the roster there. I honestly think you can roll with 3 safeties, have Isaiah Oliver play safety as well, and then you can keep another corner, which is great. So those are going to be interesting battles. The final thing I want to talk about is special teams. Obviously, the big one is our kickers and punt. I don't know who's playing on special teams for us right now. Caden Davis, the thicker kicker, Harrison Mevis, Austin McNamara at punter, Kai Kroger at punter. I have no idea who is going to be our kicker and punter. I would not be surprised if one of these guys, is on our practice squad, and then we sign someone off someone else's roster as we get closer to the season starting. But I think the one thing we all count on is Thomas Hennessy will be holding strong at long snapper, and he will never leave us because we have had the greatest long snappers of all time on our New York Jets rosters. So that is my position battles to watch out for. Went through every position, told you about the ones that we need to really care about. A lot of it is the backups. You really got to think about who is going to be rotating in and out, especially on that defensive line. Who's going to rotate in and out because everyone can't play 100% of the plays. These guys are 350 pounds. And then on offense, it's that wide receiver battle. That's going to be really the big one. So we'll see how it goes. I am so excited for training camp to come. It's going to be so great. And it's coming soon. So with that, let's wrap up before I get into my 53-man roster prediction next week. Let's wrap up with our trivia question. So in 1979, the New York Jets had a very historic game. Why was it historic? Well, number one, it was the first Monday night home game the Jets ever had. So the Jets played in the first ever Monday Night Football game against the Cleveland Browns, but they went 7 straight Monday Night Football games without playing at home. And home for them is Shea Stadium at the time. So this was the first big game, Monday Night Football, in front of the New York fans. Who did they play? They played the Minnesota Vikings. They won 14-7. But why is this game so famous? The reason why this game in 1979 on Monday Night Football is so famous is because it was the rowdiest atmosphere that you could probably ever have at an NFL football game. The reason why it was so rowdy, people are going to the pubs, the bars before the game because they're so excited for a late night Monday Night Football game, and it got out of hand. Security was not as tight as it is today, so people were bringing in Roman candles, firecrackers, essentially lighting the seats on fire, throwing objects on the field. If you watch, there's not a lot of highlights, but if you watch some, you could see, I think it was, I can't remember who the quarterback was, but you see him run into the end zone, and there's a bottle that just comes flying onto the field. There's broken glass being thrown onto the field. There is one fight in the stands between the fans and security that had 30 people kicked out of the game. 15 of them went to the hospital. That's how wild of a game this was. Now, some say the Jets and Giants at MetLife Stadium have the strictest alcohol policy in the entire league. They cut off alcohol sales after halftime. So once halftime ends and the game starts in the third quarter, no more beer sales. While all other teams do it after the third quarter, or most other teams. Some say the reason for that is because of this Monday Night Football game, where how intoxicated all these fans got and how rowdy they got. If you do some research, they say that's really not the reason because, they don't play. And that was at Shea Stadium. They played in Shea Stadium the next year on Monday Night Football and nothing bad happened. But I can only think this is one of the reasons why it happened. So if you were there at this game in 1979, 14-7, I would love to hear some stories about what it was like in the stands because it seemed absolutely bananas. The players even had to run off the field and leave safely because everyone was storming the field after the game, all of the fans. So it was just absolute disaster. It was a mess. And now you go to a game and you can't even drink water with the bottle cap. They gotta take it. They gotta open your beer for you. So I don't know. I feel like this had something to do with it. The NFL says it's really just to keep everybody safe. But this 14-7 game, Jets victory against the Vikings is, I guess, the one that maybe potentially did it. So that is it. I hope that was a fun one. That was a cool story. I've heard it for most of my life, and it was cool to actually dive into it a little bit. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you learned a little bit more about some of the training camp battles we're going to be watching. We're going to keep diving into it as training camp comes, so don't worry. If you can, follow me on all of social media. So YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, JuicyJet25. JuicyJet25. Please like, rate, review, subscribe. I feel like we're doing some really good things on TikTok. If we could spread to some of the other channels, it'd be awesome. So don't be afraid to throw likes around. Smash up the like button. And that's it. Thank you all for listening. I hope you all have a good week. I will be back next Monday for the big reveal of the 53-man roster prediction, and we will talk to you all soon. See you later.